Good morning, First Christian Church. Today our reading takes us to the book of Ruth. This book packs disaster, heartache, fear, and relational intrigue into 85 short verses. More importantly, it gives us a picture of who God is and how he relates to us, but I'll deal with that more tomorrow. For today, I'll be focusing on chapter 1 as it sets the stage for the book and introduces many of the main themes. It is a rather dark text. Right away, we learn that there is a famine in the land of Israel. We don't know the exact time in which this took place, but we do know that on numerous occasions God had promised his people that if they obeyed him and followed him, that he would bless their land. As it says in Leviticus chapter 26, if you walk in my statutes and observe my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in their seasons, and the land shall yield its increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Your threshing shall last to the time of the grape harvest, and the grape harvest shall last to the time of the sowing, and you shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land securely. Now the opposite was also true. If God's people abandoned him, the same passage says that there would be so little food that 10 women could bake bread in a single oven. That seems to be the case at the beginning of the story of Ruth. There's even a little bit of authorial irony here. Elimelech and Naomi are from Bethlehem. Bethlehem literally means house of bread, but clearly there isn't any there. So they leave. But in leaving, they go from bad to worse. They move to the land of Moab. You'll remember from the book of Genesis that the Moabites were the result of the incestuous relationship between Abraham's nephew Lot and his oldest daughter. They were also a perennial enemy of Israel. Nonetheless, that's where they go. And while there, Elimelech and Naomi's 2 sons both marry Moabite women. It gets worse. Elimelech and the 2 sons die. We don't know what the circumstances were, but regardless, Naomi is left without a husband or sons in a foreign land. At that point, she wisely decides to return home to Bethlehem. And at first, her 2 daughters-in-law intend to come with her. Naomi, of course, discourages them, telling them to return to their homes and their gods. Eventually, one of them, Orpah, does turn back, but the other daughter-in-law, a woman named Ruth, is adamant and remains with Naomi, saying, and let me read from Ruth chapter 1, starting in verse 16. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you. And so they return to Bethlehem. Once there, Naomi changes her name to Mara, which means bitter, for she believes that God has brought calamity upon her and made her life miserable. As I read this, I was reminded of what we read in Romans chapter 8, where it says that all creation is subject to futility and is groaning because of the scourge and the curse of sin. This chapter in general, and Naomi in particular, presents a vivid picture of this reality. The effects of sin had so changed her countenance that she was almost unrecognizable to her friends and neighbors after being gone for only 10 years. Hers was a visage that was reshaped by the strain of hunger, by the emotional toll of living in a foreign land where people worshipped idols by sacrificing their children on pagan altars. It was shaped by the death and loss of loved ones, and by the fear of rejection and of being alone with no one to provide for her. In other words, she was familiar with groaning and with bitterness. But she hadn't completely given up. She hadn't totally abandoned God. In spite of her questions, she still saw God as sovereign and as being aware of her situation. I'll let you read the rest of the story, and I'll look at God's character more closely tomorrow. But in the meantime, let me encourage you with these words from Romans chapter 8, where Paul writes, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." And also from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, "For this light and momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison." It is true that in this world we will experience pain. It is also true that all suffering finds its origins or its beginnings in sin. We are witnessing this reality as we daily wade through the fear and unknown that accompanies this virus. But the good news is that there is hope. There is hope in the here and now because Jesus promises to be with us, to comfort us, and to give us the grace and strength to endure. And there is hope for the future. For God promises that one day, according to his perfect plan and schedule, Jesus will return and make all things new. And in that moment, there will be no more pain or sickness or suffering or virus or sin. So let us draw near to Jesus and trust in him, and let us confidently hope for the day when the eternal glory that is beyond all comparison is revealed. May God continue to watch over you and bless you, and as always, be safe, wise, and loving.